Yo, dude, when is being a successful moron the key to advancement? Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. Hey, no offense, butthead, but if you're watching this video, there's an awfully good 100% chance, I mean a definite maybe, that you're an advanced beginner using fuzzy logic, either running in place or using the down escalator to go nowhere. If that detailed summary is a fairly accurate, exact estimate of your modern history and you're ready to start a new tradition, get ready to play double solitaire with yours truly and stay tuned for an instant classic. Wow. A lot of oxymorons there. So what is an oxymoron? An oxymoron is a figure of speech which is contradictory, such as good grief or random order. I know this is old news in today's times of social distancing and being alone together, but when you give our plight more than a cursory examination, you're going to find the unmitigated truth that we live in a world of contradictions. Mastering these sentiments will take your head out of the clouds and allow you to successfully float your boat in the uncharted waters that we're currently navigating. So let's get to it with a series of questions. Are you on autopilot? Of course you are. We all are. In any scenario that's going to be a repetitive one, when you go to work and you have a function to perform there, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, all of the different functions that you perform, you start off by using random activity. And then what you do is you fine-tune that activity into a system. And you take that system and you put yourself on autopilot. Why? Because once you get those actions going, once you have a system of what you're going to do, then it becomes a lot easier to get the job done. Does that make sense? And we all do it. The problem that arises, however, is when your system a positive system, one that gets you to the places that you want to go, or is one a negative system that keeps you in the land of, I don't want to be here. Okay? Next question. What are you doing with your limited freedom? Yeah, in a time of a pandemic, you have limited freedom. And Eli is a teenager, you have limited freedom too. You're not going out till 3 o'clock in the morning, all right? So you have limited freedom. You can go out for a certain period of time, but after that time, there's a structure. Baby, I want you home at that particular time. Does that make sense? The same thing in school. You go to school, you're taking the class, you have the bell rings, boom, you move on to the next subject. So you have a limit, the teacher has limited freedom. They can talk to you for so long, the bell rings, then you got to move along. So what are you doing with your limited freedom? Right now, you can't go to, let's say, a football game in a stadium with 50,000 people in it. What are you doing with your alone time? What are you doing with, the time that you spend in your home practicing social distancing? Are you doing positive things? Are you saying to yourself, what could I be doing right now, this minute, that is the most productive thing for me to be doing? That's a question that you should be asking yourself constantly, and the answer changes based upon your scenario, based upon your present situation. So if you're at home and you have all this time, make sure that you have a particular goal and objective, and make sure you're taking steps to reach that goal and objective using your limited freedom. Is it fruitful to be a one-man band? Well, the answer is yes, and the answer is no. The answer is yes, because we all know that success is divided up. 95% of the people are unsuccessful, 5% of the people are successful. That's a 19-to-1 ratio. So if you're part of the 19, you're part of the band, but it's not a one-man band, is it? Does that make some sense? So one of the things you want to be able to do is to step away from the crowd and become that one-man band. On the other hand, nobody is successful by themselves. You need to have someone to help you inspire or someone to give you direction. Okay, and inspiration can be a child. Eli, you're my inspiration for this channel. It can be a spouse who's inspiring you to make money. Okay, so you can go on vacation, or, you know, I'm joking a bit, but the spouse can be inspirational. You know, so nobody is a one-man band by themselves. And also in business, you're having a partner. I mean, somebody is good. As an example, back in the day, I was relatively good as a salesperson, but there was always the part of the business that made sure that the salespeople didn't go over the line when they were in their sales process. So you've got to have partners. You've got to have a yin and a yang. You've got to have somebody that inspires you. You've got to have somebody that gives you direction. So a one-man band is good, yes, so you step away from the crowd, and a one-man band is not so good for you because you need other people that think as you think, that have the same objective that you have to help you get the job done. How important is it to act naturally? You like all these oxymorons? How important is it to act naturally? Well, contradiction in terms once again. But once you become, you know, the first steps towards improvement are taking small steps, chunking things down, just as a coach does with, you know, when I was coaching basketball, I would work on the footwork. And the reason I had to do that is because the players that I was coaching didn't do the right footwork naturally. So what did we do? Repetition. Okay, move your feet this way, move your feet this way, approach it from this angle, move your feet in until it becomes muscle memory. So the first thing you want to do is determine what is the correct way that you should be acting, and then drill, practice, and rehearse it until it becomes muscle memory. And once it becomes muscle memory, then and only then are you acting naturally, aren't you? How do you feel about being a jumbo shrimp? What do I mean by that? How about being a big fish in a small pond? Well, everyone that's a mom or a dad is a big fish in a small pond. You would certainly have some tremendous importance with your children, but at the same time, that's a very small pond. It's just your one house. Same thing works its way true in the business world. You know, your boss can be a big fish with you, but with other people, not such a big fish. So before you become a big fish in a big pond, you first have to be a big fish in a small pond. So get that type of activity under control in your mind so that you can move forward with it and advance from the small pond to the big pond. But first, you've got to be the big fish in the small pond. All right, you know what? Enough about you. Let's talk about me. The question that inspired this channel is, do you, Eli's dad, have a vision for your adult children? There we go, adult children. Eli, 16 years old, is an adult child. Contradiction in terms, isn't it? It's difficult to plan. It's not difficult to plan. It's difficult to accomplish. There we go. It's difficult to accomplish what you want to accomplish with your children. Why? When they become adult children, They have a mind of their own. They know a whole bunch of things. They don't know as much as they think they know. Let me repeat that, Eli. They don't know as much as they think they know. And that is a barrier that is difficult to overcome as a parent. Why? Because a teenager has intense apathy. I'm producing these videos right now. Eli couldn't give a hoot about most of the stuff that we talk about on this channel. But I know that down the road it will be very, very important to him. So I have to overcome that intense apathy that he possesses this very moment, and the way that I concluded was the best way to do it was to have these lessons on YouTube, so that later on, even if I'm not here, that Eli would be able to take advantage of this direction so that he could advance his life, because becoming a success in the wonderful world of business, the wonderful world of life, is not always going to, he's not always going to have intense apathy. Right now, his focus is basketball and girls, and not necessarily in that order. And as we've discussed many times in this channel, that focus has changed from lightsabers at Star Wars to the present day, and that's an evolution that happens. That evolution is continuing, and then when Eli becomes focused on the things that business people, adult people, married people focus on, he'll lose that intense apathy. The other thing that I have to be, another barrier that I have to face in terms of bringing up my son, is literal interpretation. People in general, but especially younger people, are looking for black and white, cut and dry. This is always true. And as you know, as you mature, you figure out that there are frequently gray areas to things. And it becomes difficult to explain something to somebody, and on the one hand, and then have a gray area on the other hand, where you have to say, well, this is kind of the exception to that little rule. People want to have certainty. That gives credibility. But life isn't always like that. So a literal interpretation is not something that you can always have, especially when you're talking with a teenager. And the final thing I want to talk to you about with this is that bringing up kids, or as a mentor, working with your people, as a teacher, it's a lot like, I remember when I was living in California, there used to be an expression that they had that was, when you get to a certain street, you come to a California stop. What's a California stop? Well, you're in your car and you slow down. You never come to a complete and full stop. It's a rolling stop. You're still rolling. So you're going slowly, you look, boom, you go ahead. That's what they call the California stop. And developing people, whether they're your children or people that you're mentoring, your mentees, or whether they're your students, or whether you're coaching and they're your players, your people that you're working with, they're always in a rolling stop. It seems that they get to a point and there's a hesitation, but there's always a little bit of movement. And you've got to keep that in mind, and that movement sometimes is going uphill and sometimes is going downhill. And as the person, as the leader, that's something that you have to take into consideration and constantly remember that it's an ongoing process. Just as education is an ongoing, lifelong process for you as an individual. Does that make sense? So, when is it good to be a successful moron? When you can master the oxymorons of life. That's what makes you a successful moron. And because we'll never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.